I saw you write something about dull bits in a script, and I'm curious what that means.
Yes. Hitchcock has one of my favorite quotes, which, and now let's see if for all those who are Hitchcock aficionados, forgive me if I don't have it exactly right, but it's something to the effect of, movies are exactly like real life, but with all the dull bits cut out. And essentially, if you think about films, you are lying. Movies are lies. So let's say you're doing a story about Helen Keller or Abraham Lincoln. And let's say the span, whether it takes place over a year or takes place over a lifetime or 20 years. We're seeing a 2-hour movie, generally speaking, an hour and a half, 2 hours, a little more. It's a consolidation of real life. So you have to cut out the dull bits. So this is also, I would say, a common mistake that I see with writers, is that the need to explain the entrance into a scene and leaving. We don't need to see characters walking into a door, walking down the hallway, unless of course it's very purposeful, like you're doing a thriller and someone's walking down a hallway and there may be someone in another room that they don't know about, so it's very purposeful. But we don't need to see a character entering and saying, "Hi, oh, I just came in from the grocery store." We don't need to play that scene out and then see the character say, "Okay, I'm leaving now." I'm exaggerating a bit, but there are scripts that I've read where every scene practically starts with the character entering and exiting. Another example would be if we see a husband and wife and they are heading to the in-laws. We don't have to see them get in the car, put the kids in their little, in the seat belts and baby seat, drive the full distance, obviously, or even part of the distance, and we see them get out of the driveway, walk up the door, ring the doorbell. So that's an example of you cut out deliberately those dull bits. Law and Order, sometimes I'll say to writers, think of the Law and Order edits. So you may have a scene where one of the detectives says, "So, do you know about, have you ever seen this victim? You know what? The last time I saw her, she was partying with her friend Jessie. Where do you find Jessie? Oh, she's always hanging out at such and such club." Boom. We're at the club, and sometimes we might pick up a scene mid-conversation. So that's one example of cutting out dull bits.
That's a great analogy. I like that. Do you think people get some of that confused with novel writing?
Yes.
Okay.
And even in novels, you don't always have, characters entering and entering, but exiting. But with novel writing, one of the things that you can do is get fully inside the head of your character. So she's walking down the street and she sees a leaf, and it reminds her of when she was young. This is like in Faulkner, and lost her virginity. And we don't have the luxury in scripts. You can, of course, do fantasy sequence or flashback, but generally speaking, you can't go on, and you can't, as like in a book, you can describe smells. In a movie, you can't really describe a smell. You could say that a character burns toast and there's smoke coming out of the toaster, but so it definitely has to be much more economical. And one of the things I said a lot, I was an English major, one of my greatest teachers was Shakespeare. And when I say that is that, of course, I had wonderful teachers who were guides, but one of the greatest teachers is reading great authors, great screenwriters, great playwrights. I talk about a lot of times with writers, giving them feedback about not writing with exposition. Harold Pinter is a master of subtext. I recommend Matthew Weiner, Mad Men. Characters rarely say exactly what they're feeling. There's so much subtext, and it just makes the writing that much more powerful.
Do you think the lost art of novel reading will come back ever?
I don't know if I feel it's that lost, even though Barnes and Noble sadly is, closing, and but I think there are just so many wonderful books out there, and I know so many people who are in book clubs, and J.K. Rowling, bless her, I mean, she is responsible for getting more children into reading, and there's so many great authors out there, and of course, as we know, books are a great source for movies. Hollywood loves intellectual properties. They like source material. It's another strategy sometimes with screenwriters. They have a script and it's well written, and they've been having a hard time for whatever reasons gaining traction. Sometimes they may turn it into a book. And if the book starts to get traction, then they sort of reverse engineer and go back and then sell the script. Sell the book and the script based on the book.